Good evening and welcome to a very special episode of The Buck Stops Here. I'm Vishnu Shobh. On the program tonight, a story of triumph and a story of tragedy. The story of triumph is that this man behind me, Lance Naik Hanamanthappa, is alive. He was dug out from a post on the Saltoro range at an altitude of 19,600 feet, 6 days after he was buried there along with 9 other soldiers at an ultra high altitude post where temperatures plummet to minus 40 degrees. There was between 25 and 30 feet of ice, not snow, ice, above the fiber reinforced hut in which this group of soldiers were in. The sad news and the tragedy is that India has lost 9 of her sons, soldiers along with Hanumanthappa at that post who didn't make it. Their bodies were found all around him. Their bodies are still to be brought back to the mainland. And at this stage, as we bring you this news of Hanumanthappa, we can also tell you that he's in Delhi. He is fighting for his life. He is comatose. He is on a ventilator. He's got many issues right now. He is fighting for his life. Will he succeed in fighting successfully perhaps his biggest battle that's happening right now? The next 48 hours will be absolutely crucial. I'm going to quickly bring you some of the main points that we have on this story, a day in which we've seen one of the most incredible rescue operations taking place anywhere in the world. An operation taking place at a place where the rescuers knew all along that any moment they themselves may be killed because the threat of avalanches was very real. Now, Hanumanthappa is now in a very bad condition. When they found him, his pulse was extremely weak. Doctors were able to revive him at that stage. He was flown on an army aviation helicopter to the Thois base of the Indian Army. That's near the brigade headquarters in Partapur, where an Indian Air Force helicopter actually took him to Delhi. Now, a couple of important images. This was Hanumanthappa. These are exclusive images that we can bring you of Hanumanthappa. Over here, you can see that the Dhruv helicopter that evacuated him, he was getting medical treatment over there. He was put on oxygen over there. A lot of treatment was done just to try and stabilize his condition. And he was conscious, disoriented, but he was conscious at that stage. Unfortunately, we now need to report that his condition has plummeted fairly precariously after he was found buried alive after 6 days at 19,600 feet plus. What is his medical condition right now? Let's just bring out those points on his medical condition. At this stage, he is comatose. He continues to be in a shock with low blood pressure. He has pneumonia, which doctors are telling us is the big concern now, this infection that's set in. Investigations have revealed liver and kidney dysfunction. No cold exposure related frostbite injuries at the moment, but he's on the ventilator. Will he pull through this? That's what a lot of people across India are praying for, certainly in the Indian Army. Let's talk a little bit about the rescue operations themselves. Let's take a look at this image. Do you see an Indian Army post over here? Well, there is none to see. That's because it lies under 35 feet of ice, 25 to 35 feet of ice over here. It is the Sonam post of the Indian Army. And this frontage is 1 kilometer wide and 600 to 700 meters in height is what we've been told, and this entire wall came cascading down. The soldiers who were hit by this avalanche 6 days back were in that fiber reinforced hut of theirs and survived, at least initially is what we are led to believe. One of them survived and is still alive, fighting for his life, as we mentioned. This is another image. It was forwarded to us by the army today. This is the relative size of the chunks of ice that soldiers have had to dig through. Unlike snow, which we can dig through easily, they have been using ice cutters. They have been using radars, ground penetrating radars, to actually get a fix on that location. This is how they have foot by foot been carving through the ice because you can't just dig over there. At this altitude of 19,600 feet, these groups of rescuers have only been able to work for 30 minutes. After that, no matter how well adapted they have been to these high altitude conditions, exhaustion comes in, becomes a factor, which is why they move out and another team then moves in. There have been dogs which have been deployed, 2 dogs which were deployed in this operation and had a big role, we are told, in actually getting a final fix on where the habitat, the structure was, where these soldiers, 1 soldier was found alive and the bodies of the 9 remaining soldiers were located. The army put in everything that they could. These were the conditions which they were fighting to try and get in over there to pull out the soldiers. I can also tell you that while condolence messages were sent out from the Prime Minister, from the Defense Minister, from the Army Chief, the Northern Army Commander, the people fighting over here to try and get people out never gave up for a moment. They believed all along that come what may, a miracle was perhaps around the corner. My colleague Sudhir Ranjan Sen was in the Siachen Glacier yesterday and today and actually flew over the Sonam post of the Indian Army. This is Sudhir Ranjan's special report. Take a look.
We are flying over exactly the same area where 7 days ago a huge wall of ice came down, washing away an Indian Army post and 10 soldiers with it. We are flying over Sonam post. This is the place from where a huge wall of ice came down, and that is where the entire post was washed away. This is Sonam post at 19,600 feet. The importance of both Sonam and Bana is that in a daring operation in 1987, India took the Bana post. It overlooks Pakistan, and whoever has Bana post has a clear view into the Siachen post. Sonam post, standing just a few hundred feet behind it, was not only a helipad but also a post that supplied Bana post. Now, although there are alternate routes to Bana, Sonam still remains critical. In the last few days, the Indian Army, the Indian Air Force have flown over 300 sorties in helicopters like these. They have not only moved in men but heavy equipment, bit by bit. They have brought it up to 19,600 feet. Equipment like sonars, equipment like thermal imagers, to not only to find the bodies, the mortal remains of the soldiers, but also they have to re-establish this post. With camera person Arif Radu, Sudhir Ranjan Sen from Sonam Post in the Siachen Glacier for NDTV 24/7.
Well, where exactly is all of this happening? Let's give you an idea of where it's happening. The line of control in the north of Jammu and Kashmir is this red line. It stretches to a point called NJ 9842, beyond which it was not demarcated. Pakistan claims that the line extends eastwards to the Karakoram Pass. India has claimed that the line extends northwards, and in the mid-80s, we occupied the Saltoro range in our belief that the line actually stretched northwards. This is now called the actual ground position line. And then, in as much as we refer to this as the battle for the Siachen Glacier or the battle in the Siachen Glacier, the battle in many senses is actually fought on the Saltoro range at altitudes more than 20,000 feet in many instances for posts which exist over here. One of those posts was the Sonam post. It was one of the northernmost posts of the Indian Army. The way it works in Siachen is that whoever controls the heights controls the area, and therefore the defense of Siachen is based and premised on the existence of Indian soldiers in these high altitude posts in subhuman conditions through the summer, through the winter, to ensure that this entire area is with us, is with India. But let's just bring you a story, a report on today's major developments with Lance Naik Hanumanthappa, his evacuation and his being brought to Delhi.
First pictures of the miracle rescue. Lance Naik Hanamanthappa surrounded by army doctors being flown out by the army from 19,600 feet to Delhi. Lance Naik Hanamanthappa and 9 other soldiers were buried under 25 feet of snow for 5 days. Yeah. One of the most critical Indian Army positions in the northern glacier, it served as a helipad where supplies were dropped for nearby ports, including the famous Bana post. It was from here that Bana Singh launched his assault on Bana Top in 1987. It still remains critical. Even as we fly over the glacier, soldiers moving towards the Sonam post. Others hard at work at Sonam. Last Wednesday, these 10 men had gone out on a patrol. They returned after midnight and radioed back. At about 3:30 a.m., the radio message said everything was normal. In 2 hours, by 5:30, Sonam post looked like this. Under huge boulders of snow, all 10 men were buried.
It was a snow wall of 1000 meters by 800 meters that got detached from the Bana hill feature and fell on the Sonam post. And the area it covered was again around 1000 meters by 800 meters on the Sonam post on the Sonam post itself. So therefore, to carry out rescue operation was extremely difficult.
These pilots are veterans having flown many hours here, yet they find the conditions testing.
Where this ice wall is broken, that place is close to 20,000 feet. Our difficulties become more difficult when the wind speeds are high, the altitudes are high, the aircraft is operating at the extremes of its envelope, the power margin is less.
The search operation involved over 200 men who had to be flown in. The Indian Army and the Air Force flew over 300 sorties in the last 5 days. Airlifting equipments like radars, thermal imagers, ice cutters in parts, which had to be assembled again at the Sonam post before it could be used.
Ice walls form over a number of years, and every year with the accumulation of snow, the ice walls keep becoming heavier and heavier. People talk of global warming and all these issues because of which it may have happened. I can't really explain the reasons for it, but coming down of an ice wall is a very rare phenomenon.
Now with the miraculous rescue and 9 dead, worries of the Indian Army are far from over. It needs to re-establish Sonam post as early as possible. With camera person Arif Radu, Shudhiranjan Sen from Leh.
Well, the cost that India pays for this high altitude battle is not a cost that one measures in rupee terms. It's measured in terms of human lives. It's measured in so many ways, not just the cost. More people have died, nearly 800 odd people, to the elements in Siachen since we moved into those areas from the mid-80s than they actually have to fighting in that particular area. We're going to look at why India believes, the army believes, it is essential to maintain our presence on the Siachen heights. Is there an alternative to that? But we're also going to reflect on the courage, not just of the man who has survived miraculously, but also of the survivors, of the rescuers and the work that they have been doing. Joining us on this program, a lot of special guests. One among them, Colonel Narendra Kumar, is a real hero. He led India's first expedition into Siachen. He's one of India's foremost mountain climbers. At one stage in his life, he knew large parts of the Saltoro range like the back of his hand. General V.P. Malik with us. Thanks very much, sir. Colonel Ajay Shukla and Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur, who has flown in the Siachen heights on helicopters, the Chetak, the Cheetah, perhaps more than any other flyer of the Indian Air Force in terms of the number of hours that he has logged over there. Colonel Kumar, 6 days, trapped 35 feet under ice. Is this anything short of a miracle?
I don't think there is any other example in the world that anybody who's been hit by an ice avalanche and remains alive after 6 days. This is the only case. And I remember avalanches are not new in that area. When I was climbing Saltoro Kangri, and we went up and we heard, I heard some rumbling sound on the left side, as if the ice wall was shaking. I called my people down. And then 10 days we had to wait till we heard almost 6 trains coming together. It was like a tsunami. And everybody was scared. I was happy. I said the route which was being blocked by this avalanche had been cleared. So after it cleared, we sent the party up. And they were about 2,000 feet below the summit.
What
And
altitude was this, sir?
this is at 23,400 feet. Saltoro is the 4th highest mountain in India, after Kanchenjunga, Nanda Devi, and Kamat. And so when they came back on the Saltoro ridge, if you have been seen there, there is one rock coming straight up. It looks higher. The main peak is sloping down. But actually, the summit, snow summit, is about 250 feet higher than that.
Right.
So these people thought that, I also thought this is the highest point. They couldn't climb that rock. They sat there, got the flags and all that, and said, so we climbed.
So the threat of avalanches is constant. That's the point that you're making.
Absolutely. No, I want to tell you that when the team came back, I had to send another team. And we sent them up at Camp 3, and snowfall in the evening. I had to call them down. There were a Sikh havaldar there. उसे कर्नल साहब को कुछ पता नहीं, कभी कहते हैं ऊपर जाओ, कभी कहते हैं नीचे जाओ, कब ये सियाचन का स्यापा खत्म होगा. Sure enough, next day, whole campus buried to 20 feet of snow, and they came and thanked me for saving them.
Right.